Where the heck is this going to go? And do we have the resources to reel in North Korea without using the big stuff? For more, let's bring in Congressman Joe Sestak, a member of the House Armed Services Committee. He's a retired three-star admiral and the highest-ranking military officer ever to serve in Congress. Joe, where are we on this? How severe is this? Let me show you this first. This is a comment from the Korean news service. They're saying that there is neither way to improve relations nor hope to bring them on track. The confrontation between the North and the South in the political and military fields has been put to such extremes that the inter-Korean relations have reached the brink of war. Admiral, where are we?
You know, since 1950, we have had a score of incidents that have occurred with North Korea, the Hermit Kingdom, of which we know so little. This is always a cause for concern that something that seems relatively small can always get out of control. But if there's anything we need to be doing right now, it's to ensure that we're working with China, the one nation that seems to have influence over what's known, as I mentioned, the Hermit Kingdom, North Korea, to ensure that this does not escalate. I honestly believe that the George Washington Aircraft Carrier Battle Group, of which I once had command of, is deploying there as much, and it's home-based in Japan, so it's not far away. It's going into those waters off Korea as much as to make sure that South Korea, while it knows that we're on its side, also doesn't overreact, because this is how, unfortunately, wars can begin. World War I did it, and we can't permit that to happen. So diplomacy is what's most important right now.
Admiral, Congressman, are you concerned that South Korea might do something spontaneously to respond?
I think we have had their president actually say that words to the effect that if this occurs again, he might have to strike their bases. Now, and this is how things can happen. Look, this is being managed as best as it can, and in this way where we shouldn't be doing anything except not overreacting and apply the most important diplomatic efforts we can on China just to make sure that North Korea doesn't overreact and we make sure South Korea doesn't, as we work with China to bring about a peaceful resolution of making sure North Korea comes back to the table and stop its pursuit of an increased nuclear capability and hopefully do away with the 12 or so nuclear devices they have. Second, Ed, as you probably well know, the problem with Iraq was that it tore our national security fabric. We don't have an army right now that can respond to the war plan for South Korea and meet its timeline. When I asked that question of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when I got to Congress in 2007, his response was, the Army and the Navy can fill in. Wait a moment here. If the war plan calls for something, well, then we did rent our national security fabric a bit by that tragic misadventure in Iraq. Second, we haven't even done exercises in our military, our ground forces, of combined arms, tanks, artillery, and exercise that way, because over the last 6-7 years we've done nothing but counterinsurgency.
Congressman, you're telling our audience tonight we don't have the resources to put on the ground in South Korea. We could be at the mercy, or South Korea could be at the mercy of a 1 million-man army that could swarm South Korea, depending on how many casualties they want to take, if it gets to that. So, I mean, this is some pretty serious stuff.
Ed, let me be clear about this. You know, I have asked this question each year, almost, since I've been a congressperson. And I arrived in Congress very concerned about that tragic misadventure in Iraq. But the response from the chairman has been, as well as the Chief of Staff of the Army, that they believe that the Navy and the Air Force can handle the initial defense of South Korea until at some time Army units can arrive. And this is what's important. Then I believe very strongly that the probability of this escalating is pretty darn low if we do things right diplomatically. But second, Seoul is only 25 miles south of the demilitarized zone. And that's why any type of conflict will have quite grave damage.
Congressman Joe Sestak, always a pleasure. Admiral, good to have you with us tonight. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
China, of course, is still the big player in this.